Am I the asshole for exposing my ex to his mother about our kids? I, 45F, am currently divorced from my ex Thomas, 47M, of 30 years. We ended up seeing a lawyer to help with dividing stuff. Everything was pretty much wrapped up till he said he no longer wanted any part of our kids' lives, 5M, and 12F. I didn't argue with him about it since I already know what it's like having a parent who doesn't want you around or wants to be in your life. I asked what he wanted me to tell the kids and he just said whatever you think is best, I don't care. I don't want to parent anymore. Everything was in agreement and signed with no fuss. A few weeks later I get a call from my ex-mother-in-law asking if we could meet each other. When I came over she broke down crying and begging to let my ex see his kids again. I was confused about what she meant because not once did he contact me after meeting the lawyer. She went on about how my ex said he really missed them and that I was just a petty BTCH for taking full custody. Also that he was crying for days about it. I told her my version of events and she called it BS, saying her son wouldn't lie like that, especially not about his kids. Then I decided to call him in front of her. He didn't know she and I were meeting that day. I said, hey, 5M has a soccer game in a few days, which he did, and I was wondering if you wanted to go. I know he'd really love it and be happy to see you. He instantly said no. I already said I'm not doing this anymore. I raised my voice a bit saying, well, what about holidays and birthdays, because we never discussed any of it and your family might want to see them. He just said my family already thinks the kids aren't mine anyways, so it doesn't matter. I asked, well, how do you think this is going to affect Denise, his mom? She is over the moon about them. He just said she loves me more than the kids, so I doubt this will be an issue for her. After a bit more talking we finally hung up. Ex-mother-in-law was straight-faced and nodded at everything that just happened, saying okay. She asked me to leave and said we would be in touch. Later that day I got a call from my ex saying how it's my fault he was kicked out of his mom's house and possibly will be taken off her will. Also that none of his family members will talk to him because of what ex-mother-in-law heard. He threw a lot of insults at me before I hung up and now him and his mates keep calling and texting me. My friend is saying I shouldn't have said anything in the first place and I ruined his life. Am I the asshole for refusing to tell the school why my daughter was absent? My daughter is in the 5th grade. Thursday night she got her first period and it freaked her out. She was sad she was getting older. She was up all night. Likely dealing with a lot of unfamiliar hormones. We ended up taking the next day off for a mental health day. I called the school and said we'd had a personal matter and she wouldn't be in. She has a male teacher who she doesn't really get on with, so suffice it to say she wanted to keep this private. The next day her teacher stopped me after I dropped her off and kind of cornered me outside the building, blocking my path from leaving, which already grated on my nerves. He asked where my daughter had been the day prior. I said we'd had a personal matter at home and it was resolved now, thanked him for his concern, and said I really must be off to work now. He then said I had to tell him. Kind of leaning over me and dropping his voice an octave as though he were trying to lord over one of the kids. Wasn't a fan of that either. I told him I didn't have to do anything and if he continued to speak to me this way I might have to have a chat with the administrators. He said if I didn't tell him then it would be an unexcused absence. You need something like 5 of those for it to matter and this would be my daughter's first, so I shrugged my shoulders. Not to mention I could get it expunged at a higher level. Finally I said again I really couldn't be late to work and I pushed past and left. He called after me that he couldn't be expected to do his job if I left him out of the loop on things like keeping my child out of school. I told him he'd have to manage. When I got to the car I vented all this to my husband, who felt maybe I'd been a bit too brash and that the teacher was coming from a place of genuine concern for my daughter. I now feel a bit badly and as though maybe I jumped to conclusions stonewalling him the way I did. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for taking my daughter to get her hair cut when I knew it would upset my wife? Me, 29M, and my wife, 30F, have a little girl, 8F, who I'll be calling Anna. Now, Anna has very thick, blonde and curly hair that my wife adores. Ever since she was a toddler, she'd spend hours doing her hair every day, braiding it, straightening it and styling it in all sorts of ways. Our bathroom cabinets are always filled to the brim with a bunch of hair lotions, oils, creams and other fancy products I don't even know the names of. So I think it's more than fair to say that my wife's a bit obsessed with the whole hair thing. Anna, however, has never been too fond of getting her hair done, or of anything that involves having to sit still for more than a few minutes. Before she got it cut, her hair used to reach past her waist. And while it looked lovely, she hated getting it brushed and every morning used to be a screaming fest between her and my wife. Lately, she'd been begging for a shorter haircut. My wife ignored her whenever the topic was brought up in hopes that she'd forget about it, but none of that ended up happening. I think Hannah realized she was getting nowhere with her mom, because she started asking me to take her instead. I was reluctant to at first because I didn't know how my wife would react, But I agreed when I saw just how excited the kid was over something as simple as a haircut. So yesterday I drove her to the hairdresser, where she got to flip through a lot of magazines and pick a picture of a haircut. And when she chose a really short clipper cut, I knew I was gonna be in deep shit with my wife. At that point though, there was no turning back. I mean, what could I have really done? Told her that no, she can't get the haircut she was so over the moon about, all because her mom wouldn't like it? I couldn't do that, so we went ahead with the haircut, and by the end of it Anna couldn't stop smiling. She went around the salon showing it off to everyone and even asked me to take a bunch of pictures even though she normally hates having pictures taken of her. We did get one rude comment from an older woman at the salon, something along the lines of "You can't even tell if she's a boy or a girl now." But Anna was way too excited about her hair to notice, and if she did notice she didn't care. When my wife got home from work that day though, things quickly took a turn for the worse. She refused to even look at Anna, locked herself in her room and cried, then got in the car and drove off. It's been a day now and she's still not back. It's honestly starting to worry me. I knew she wouldn't react well to the haircut, but I wasn't expecting her to take it this badly. The kid's upset too, and no matter how much I reassure her she still thinks she's in trouble for getting her hair cut. Am I the asshole? I realize how attached my wife was to Anna's hair, but at the end of the day I still think it's just hair. The kid's old enough to decide these things for herself and she was really happy with the haircut. So I don't think I did something wrong here. Am I the asshole for announcing that my dad's not paying my college tuition? My aunt and uncle are paying for my cousin's college. My dad had a college fund for me, but he had stipulations like he wanted nothing below a B for grades and to pre-approve any classes I take, weekly meetings to discuss grades and a bunch of other stuff. Which would be fine if you have a normal dad. Mine isn't. My dad has a temper and I spent 6th 12th grade stressed out about grades and being screamed at or grounded over things that sometimes weren't even my fault, like a teacher not updating online grading and an assignment being marked missing because of it. And getting my backpack and locker randomly searched by him for no reason besides to make sure I'm not hiding anything. I decided to pay for school myself because of 1, not being stressed over getting screamed at, 2, I didn't feel like constantly worrying that he'd disapprove of a class or a grade and decide not to pay, which I could totally see him doing. I'd rather be in debt than controlled for 4 more years. I just finished my first year. Well, my family got together on the 4th and, well, sometimes they're nosy. They were talking about my cousin's school and my uncle looked at my dad and said, "Well, how much is my name's school costing you?" I said, "What are you asking him for? I'm the one paying for it." Later on my dad was pissed off and said that it was out of line to say that and I embarrassed him. I didn't do it to embarrass him, I was just being honest. He doesn't even know how much tuition is, so he was the wrong person to ask. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for making my boyfriend feel uncomfortable after he insisted on joining us on girls' night in? My boyfriend M27 started asking to join me in my girls' night in. Every time I tried to say no he'd be like, "I have to join or you'll have to cancel." It made me and the girls miserable having to sit there with him in the middle. This past Friday he insisted to join us again. I had enough. I came up with an idea to get him to hate hanging out with us, made a plan and told the girls what we were going to do and they were down for it. The girls came and my boyfriend immediately sat with us and started ruining our conversations by steering them towards him/his work/his achievement. So here's what I did. I started bringing up gross/embarrassing subjects and the girls were eating them up by talking about them in details. Subjects like CIVCs, periods, his most sensitive spot, cramped diarrhea, hairy legs, fart getting trapped in the vulva and coming out the front, squeezing shit out of our faces, cramped diarrhea, dirty underwear, and again, cramped diarrhea. We talked about this stuff in boring details, like, I could feel his discomfort without even looking at him. But God, when I turned to see why he got quiet suddenly, he was getting red in the face, and had sweat all over his forehead. I bet he found himself unable to relate to these subject, thus couldn't take part in the conversation. He got up from the couch ready to head out. I looked at him and asked where he was going and he was like, I just remembered that I have an important meeting with a guy in about 10 minutes and, I have to go now." He rushed out telling us to have fun. The girls and I started laughing hysterically. He came home and berated me saying I made him feel uncomfortable/sick with the horrible subjects I kept bringing. I said, "What you talking about?" This is the typical stuff girls talk about all the time, but he insisted I made him upset and caused him to leave. He declined to speak to me and been quiet since then. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for calling my sister-in-law a racist after she compared my cooking to making kung pao chicken? For context, I've been married to my wife for 10 years and we're a mixed-race couple. I'm Asian and she's Caucasian. I've gotten along with her family, Bill, Sil, but I always felt like her Phil and other Sil, Sarah, never liked me. I'm a professionally trained chef with 15 plus years of experience and I work at a high-end Chinese restaurant, a spin-off of a popular one in Beijing, in a large US city. My crew and I have won several awards, and I've been explicitly told I'll be the next executive chef. Sarah is also a professionally trained chef and works at a popular upscale French restaurant in the city. She constantly brags about it and, no joke, compares herself out loud to Ramsay and Bourdain. Whenever I'm at my mill and Phil's house and helping out in the kitchen, Sarah is always criticizing everything I do. Whether it's chopping, braising, marinating, etc., she always butts in with comments like I think you should actually do X like this. I've been patient for my wife and sidestepping those comments, saying things like thanks, but I think I'll stick to the way I do it. Things came to a head 2 weeks ago when my wife, Phil, Mill, and I were in her parents' kitchen prepping dinner for my Mill's birthday. We were running a bit behind so things were heated, which I kind of liked because it reminded me of work. And that's when Sarah walked in. She took one look at what I was doing, scoffed, and said something like, "Oh wow, okay. So that's not the right way of doing things." It hit a nerve and I pretty sternly told her to stop criticizing my cooking and that I'm also a chef like her. She laughed and said making kung pao chicken at some Chinese restaurant doesn't count. The kitchen went silent, father-in-law snorted/chuckled, and my mother-in-law yelled, "Sarah, what is wrong with you?" I stopped what I was doing, swore at her and called her a racist piece of shit, apologized to my mill for not being able to stay, and left for home with my wife. Apparently this caused a massive fight after we left, with my mother-in-law/brother-in-law/other sister-in-law taking my side and my father-in-law/Sarah saying it was a joke but kind of true and that I was being too sensitive. The extended family somehow got wind of this and now everyone is arguing and taking sides, with my wife even getting texts from some her cousins apologizing for Sarah's behavior. Despite being on my side, my wife is begging me to apologize so that the fighting will stop, but I refuse to because FCK Sarah and her blatant racism. Am I the asshole?
When summer ends, it always leaves a mark, so we can find our way back to the water. But we take our time and lay out on the dock like two cold-blooded souls in need of warmth. We'll take everything that you want, you can have it, and I'll brush the sand from my clothes. No need to be ladylike, even forbidden fruit you can buy, and every excuse you could possibly use for the way that the world says to be. I'm thinking it's best if we lose that, that only gives us our blues back. Oh, 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 you be like, oh, 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 you be like, oh, 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 you give me life, you give me life, oh, oh, you give me life, you give me life.
Men who previously had no luck with women, what did you change? Started to take more risks instead of overanalyzing everything. I used to be pretty skinny. Like 135 pounds. I started going to the gym and put on 20 pounds, suddenly started getting more attention. It's scary how similar this is to me. I was also super skinny and exactly 135 pounds, started going to the gym and also put on 20 pounds, then started getting more attention, ending in a relationship. Are you? Me? I am you. Look in the mirror. I was having absolutely zero luck with one woman in particular, so I changed my marital status to divorced. Did you just give away the cheat code? Love yourself first. Don't be overconfident but be comfortable in your own skin, be authentic and listen. Showing emotion, passion, curiosity, and security are a must in all from self-love. Women don't want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with themselves. I did what is called a pro gamer move and started asking men out too. Now I got no luck with either. Pro gamer move.